morning, everyone. I'm Rita Bennett, VP Corporate Communications for Great Bear Resources. Joining me today is Chris Taylor, our President and CEO, and got a few things to talk about. We released a news release this morning, and I just want to kind of give everybody a little bit of an update on what's going on in the company and what we talked about today in the news release. So thanks, Chris, for your time. Quick overview. I know you said that we had second deep drill hole at Dixie.
Yep.
So talk to me a little bit about that, and then we can kind of go into the highlights as you're ready.
We've now completed our second deep drill hole at Dixie, just like you said, which is really important for us in the sense that one of the things we're doing is systematically expanding on all the known zones on the project. And with the hinge zone, this was our second discovery on the project. Essentially, the first one would have been figuring out that there was a high-grade component on the Dixie Limb zone. Then we found the hinge zone back in 2018. And now, for the first time, we've done this massive step down, more than doubled the known size of the hinge zone. And really what it does is puts that zone in the context of a big, if you wanted to, and I'm not saying we're going to do this, but it certainly has the potential to be big enough to be like a standalone type of deposit in the district. So now we want to do more drilling on it and show that that could indeed be the case. Although, as we've said many times before, it sits right beside the LP fault zone. It's very likely any development situation would involve both of them at the same time.
That makes sense. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the highlights that we presented today in the news release?
Okay.
You want to go ahead and share your screen? I know people really like having you walk them through that.
Well, how about I do a bit of a narrated walk through the high points on the news release? Is that a good way to go?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so here are the main points, and I've got my trusty pen ready to go. So the main points being, if you thought about this, it's a 510-meter step down, which is really incredible. When we think about what we see around the industry in terms of results, I mean, you see companies doing 10-meter step downs, 50-meter step downs, 50-meter step outs, 10-meter step outs. To do something that's over half a kilometer long, in fact, where we hit this mineralization was almost 1.2 kilometers down the hole. And frankly, we hit it exactly where we thought it would be. So once again, we're showing that our geological models have really been absolutely bang on. And that's what's really impressive here. And if you remember what the deep drilling in the Red Lake area, what people are able to go into production on, look at the numbers that we've got here, 15 grams over about 5 meters. So about half an ounce over about 5 meters. If you look at the district as a whole, usually if you have 10 grams over about 2 meters, you can mine that down to very significant depths. You see mining of those grades down over 2 kilometers vertical depth. So really, as impressive as it is that we've now drilled the hinge zone down to 850 meters from surface, this is really only about 1/3 of the mining depths that you see at other projects still. So you're still literally scratching the surface of what the project shows, but it is showing you continuity of the zones, predictability. That's the real key: predictability, continuity, and size. Really, we've more than doubled what people would think the hinge zone could contain with one drill hole, and it wasn't hard to do. It hit exactly where it should have hit.
Perfect. So that's wonderful for people to know. Did you want to talk a little bit about, we had a 3D view of it, and I kind of wanted you to walk people through that because there's a lot of moving parts in this news release. So if you could just talk to everybody about kind of what that looks like from the 3D model.
So I could go down to some of the other aspects of the release here. So here's a summary of the grades that we put out. So you can see in the middle of that zone, you see some material here. It's just about a couple ounces. We put the individual assays in one of the other figures. You have the central area on it, a couple meters of 28 grams. So a lot better than the 2 meters of 10 that you need to see. Mm-hmm. And the wider interval, as we've said, is roughly about half an ounce over 5 meters. That's within a broader zone of about 6 grams over 15 meters. So it's a very substantial zone. If you think about an average mining width of about 2 meters in this area, you've got about a 15-meter wide vein zone in this hole with additional veins that are coming in beside that as well, if you look at the intercepts. So, but looking at the diagram that you were mentioning, this is really a visual representation. So there's the over 500 meters down plunge. So there's the deepest drilling on the hinge zone previously. And here is the deep drilling, the new hinge zone drilling. So obviously over time, the company needs to fill in this gap. And if you can do that, you'll have, I believe, a very attractive high grade gold in quartz vein type system. Of course, right beside that, you have the Dixie Limb zone. We actually drilled a hole already down in the Dixie Limb at around just 780 meters vertical depth. But what you're seeing here is that pattern of predictability. Where it's drilled, very predictable. Where we hit it down at depth, very predictable. Where it's drilled, very predictable. Where we hit it at depth, very predictable. So you can see effectively what we're expecting to see is the ability to fill that in as we drill it over time. That by itself would be similar in its capacity for some of the projects in the area that are in production, going into production. So this by itself, if you did not have the LP fault zone, this would be a very attractive Red Lake style project with serious potential. I think if you read over the analyst reports, so the guys that are covering the company, and really it's early days, we're still proving it, as you can see with holes like this, but they're expecting us to be able to generate well over 1 million ounce resource in sort of the 10-ish gram per ton range. And you can see that companies with those kind of resources on their hands in Red Lake, they can trade over $1 billion in value. This is the kind of target we're putting together right here, and it's predictable in this area. So that's something to really to look forward to. And if you can do that here, it's really just a small part of the project, because right beside this, over in this area, you have the LP fault, which is, 10 times bigger.
Yeah,
So that's exactly. Really the story. Okay, I guess first off on the hinge, I should have shown these pictures as well. It's just an example of the actual visible gold. So no problem seeing that material. It's very visible with the naked eye. So, this is quite interesting too. If I show you another graphic just before we go through, this is a level plan down at 850 meters vertical depth on that hinge zone intercept. And if you look on this, I was just looking at this beforehand. You can see here, you've got gold, you've got gold, and you've got gold. And it's really interesting. This may be, for the geologists in the audience, a lot of vein zones in the world are these sort of crack seal type veins. So you have a vein, say it's a few meters wide, you'll get the gold concentrated near the margins of the vein. I've seen other deposits in Canada that are this is quite common, and really nothing in the middle. So there would be the gold, and there wouldn't be very much in that intervening area. With us, what we're looking at here, if I can get it on the page, is quite the opposite. You have the gold along the margins, but the middle of it is really nicely mineralized. So the strongest mineralization is in the middle. And the important part here, Rita, is really multiple pulses of gold mineralization have gone through this system. So it has cracked, it has filled with gold-bearing veins, it has cracked again, and then it's filled with more gold-bearing veins. And that's a hallmark of the bigger mineralized systems, is not just one gold pulse event, it's multiple pulses of gold-bearing fluids. And that's why you're getting exceptional grades and predictability in this area and a big vein system. It's one of the points I guess I should have mentioned. So.
No, completely makes sense. And just to remind everybody, those colors are representative of the assay holes and basically the grade. So if you're seeing a lot of magenta, I like to call it pink or magenta, I don't know, but we're seeing a lot of that here. So all those large pinkish, purplish dots, those are all over 20 grams per ton. And I think sometimes we forget, because like you said, what's usually mined in the area is, 10 grams per ton over 2 meters or whatever. I mean, these are amazing grades. So just really, really exciting when we just kind of take a big step back and go, holy, these are very, very high grade, results. So super happy about that. What are we going to be doing further regional drilling there? Like, what are we going to be doing there? What are our plans as far as continuing exploring there, the on-strike continuation of the hinge zone?
Well, effectively, here's some level plans on the hinge zone. You could see it shallower. Well, this is a very interesting hit, and this is something that Bob was very excited about when the hole went in and hit this new vein zone. So here you can see, gives you a feel for some of the dimensionality. Like that's 1.1 kilometers between the arrow zone and the hinge zone. If you just go along strike right there. Here is the hit from today. This is some hits that we had out a few months back. We now know they're part of the same hinge zone vein vein system, most likely. You can see the cluster of the hinge zone on surface, some additional veining. What we're seeing as we go deeper on the project is more veining, and the system generally appears to be wider. And so there's really nothing up in this area above this point, but we put a drill hole, extended another LP fault drill hole to depth, and we hit this massive vein system. And the thing is huge. So we took 50 meters of it to show, on this image here, and you can see it's just veining after veining after veining after veining, and you see that repeated for 130 meters. And there's some gold in this as well. There was a few grams in places. So the bottom line with this is what you want to do is you now know that you've got a brand new vein target, which is extending over here into this area. Now you want to be able to take that vein system, it'll extend in this sort of these directions. You want to hit the various geological contacts and structures that occur as we go along strike. The arrow zone was an example of that. And generally where you hit a change in geology or a structure, that's where the gold pops out. But it may also be the case, and we're not sure, we don't know yet for sure, but if you look at this, you've got hinge zone hit, and now big vein zone. It's actually possible the hinge zone is just larger at depth, and you're looking at an increasing strike extent, increasing amount of veining, and really effectively what we'd be expecting to see is these shoots of gold mineralization going down, and maybe there's a number of them. And that's what really the exploration context is going to be. If this is one vein system, 130 meter wide vein system is one of the biggest on the project outside of the LP fault, which is absolutely bigger, up to hundreds of meters of total alteration. For a Red Lake style system, to get 130 meters of veining in a hole is exceptionally unusual, especially quartz veining with gold. That shows you that you're looking at a very big, well-developed system in this area. Fits the other evidence that we keep seeing, is that you go down, you get a bigger system.
Yeah, wonderful. So new regional vein zone over near the hinge zone, deeper drilling at the hinge zone, obviously continued work at the LP fault. What else are we doing? Like, give me an overview of what we're doing coming up in 2021. I know we're I hate to say it, but we're almost done the year, and December 9th today already. But what do we have planned for 2021 as far as our exploration and drilling goes?
Well, effectively, Rita, I'll just stop sharing. But what we're going to be doing is probably adding more drill rigs. We announced today that we're looking at least another 100,000 meters that we're going to drill next year. We think, given the fact that there's likelihood that we're going to bring in additional rigs, you're probably going to be spending a bit more next year, so about $25 million. Right now, we have just over $40 million in the bank, so we're actually already fully funded for that work. This comes down to, I see the potential. Bob, we were talking about it quite a bit recently. I mean, it's obvious to us that the hinge and limb are significant finds in their own right. They're really predictable, and they're big. They have huge depth extent, as you've seen. We go down deeper, it looks like they're kind of broadening out. So what we want to do is add more rigs, and I don't know how many this is going to be exactly yet. That really comes down to logistics, but say 1 or 2 or more different drill rigs that will add to the project in 2021, and we'll keep the current 5 rigs on the LP fault, and we'll keep doing that big grid drill program. And if we do add rigs to the hinge and limb, then we can use those rigs periodically to test other regional targets, maybe even do some drilling on the other properties that we have in the Red Lake area, because we have some other good targets that we'd like to explore. It's not an immediate priority, but I think there's a good chance for additional discovery there too. But largely, show the size, show the continuity, show the real potential of the Dixie Limb and Hinge Zone. Again, I think those are equal to what you see in a production context in the Red Lake area. So why don't we show people what the potential of those projects is really going to be?
Yeah, and that makes sense. So increasing this drill program, that'll bring us to, I guess, overall 300,000 meter drill program if we were to include it all together, if we do increase it by 100,000 meters. So that's huge. Really
exactly.
drill program.
Hundreds of holes. Like, we've drilled over 400 holes at this point on the project. But the targets are so big. Like the LP fault, as we've said time and time again, we think that thing has potential to be a tier 1 type of discovery in its own right. Like, it's high grade, it's shallow, it's big, and that means it has capacity in our minds, and we're showing this with the drilling, to be a big, long-term, high grade, profitable, producing type of asset.
Thank you for your time. I know we're really, really busy on news release dates, but people do like these Q&As. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can always reach IR at info@greatbearresources.ca, or you can call us directly at 604-646-8354. And yeah, we're hoping to kind of do some more of these educational pieces as well with you as we, ramp up and do even a larger program in 2021. So we look forward to talking to you soon, and any questions, please reach out. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rita.